Welcome to the Pharma Forum podcast. This is web editor Nicole Raleigh, and today I have with me Krisztian Benyo, PhD, who is Technical Business Developer Europe at PASQAL. PASQAL builds quantum computers from ordered neutral atoms in 2D and 3D arrays to bring a practical quantum advantage to its customers and address real-world problems. PASQAL was founded in 2019 out of the Institut d'Optique by Georges-Olivier Raymond, Christophe Jossack, Professor Dr. Alan Aspect, a joint winner of the Nobel Prize for Physics 2022, as well as Dr. Antoine Brouwers and Dr. Thierry Lahav. PASQAL is also working with Qubit Pharmaceuticals to design the quantum algorithms used in their drug discovery experiments. Qubit Pharmaceuticals was founded in 2020 with the vision of co-developing with pharmaceutical and biotech companies new, more effective, and safer drugs through simulation and molecular modeling, accelerated by hybrid HPC and quantum computing. So you've probably guessed by now that today's focus will be on quantum computing. However, more specifically, we'll be discussing the pharma applications and commercialization of such quantum science. There'll be some technical content, but this is a discussion for the wider audience also. Before we sink our teeth in, however, perhaps PASQAL'S own Krisztian could tell listeners a bit more about himself, about his journey to today and what he does.
Of course. Thank you very much, Nicole, for having me. So indeed, my name is Krisztian Benyo. I'm a technical business developer as well as a quantum solutions expert at PASQAL. So my background is in mathematics. I originally come from Hungary. So I grew up and started my studies in Hungary. And then I moved to France, where I currently live and exercise my current job. I started out researching mathematical physics, so in particular computational fluid dynamics, which was my main area of interest and has been for a very, very long time now. And from this, I have slowly shifted towards quantum computing back in 2020 as part of a consulting role I previously filled in. It was actually a funny story because due to my PhD in applied mathematics, I've been identified as a quantum physics expert, which was a very heavy jump in logic, but nevertheless, it provided me with a very interesting opportunity to get more involved with this new emerging field. And ever since then, so for the past 4 years, I've been working with quantum technologies, with quantum computers of various kinds, and investigating different use cases and applications for the different industries. And last year, I joined PASQAL as part of this venture in the role of this expert in the use case and algorithmic development side. PASQAL is, as you have mentioned, Nicole, France headquartered quantum computing scale-up now. So we are currently more than 200 working from all over the world and providing full stack quantum solutions for the community, which is academic, scientific, as well as industrial community. Here, full stack means that we are developing the hardware, so the physical quantum processing unit, an actual quantum computer that's capable of running the computations. We are developing the software stack in order to allow users to interact with said devices. And we are also investigating various use cases and algorithms to benefit from this technology. So we are really present on all the different levels of the stack.
Gosh, yes, very comprehensive indeed. So let's tunnel down into that now. So solubility is critical in drug discovery. Very basically, drugs must dissolve properly to be effective. However, predicting how water molecules will interact with proteins has been a massive issue. Computational methods for understanding protein hydration have significantly advanced alongside experimental approaches, and this is where quantum computing comes in. And PASQAL'S work focuses on finding the water density in protein pockets and then extracting the water molecule's position from the density so that drugs are more effective. Using a quantum-based approach allows for a more efficient and accurate process. And Krisztian, you're going to tell us more.
Of course. So indeed, water molecules play a crucial role in mediating protein ligand binding by influencing the stability and specificity of these interactions. They can form hydrogen bonds with both the protein and the ligand, contributing to the overall binding affinity, which can inhibit or prohibit the interaction depending on which site this water molecule is present. So it is very crucial in an early stage of drug development to accurately determine the position of these water molecules. Currently, in a more classical sense, there are two main approaches that is being used in the industry. The first is a more experimental technique, such as X-ray crystallography or others, which rely on actual physical experiments to try to establish the position of these water molecules within the protein. But these methods often struggle to detect or resolve the water molecule placement because these water molecules are relatively small compared to the large proteins. So they're very agile, they're very mobile, and they're very transient by nature. So it's very, very difficult to capture them with high accuracy. On the other hand, if you consider a more computational approach, such as molecular dynamic simulation, you can predict the position of these water molecules with high accuracy. However, these demand a lot in terms of classical computational resources. So they are very demanding in FPGA, GPU type resources to actually do the simulations. And even with all these precise simulations, you still have to verify or validate these computations with experimental data. So therefore, together with Qubit Pharmaceuticals, Pascal has proposed, I would say, an in-between sort of middle ground approach that relies on density functional theory. So as part of density functional theory, you are not focused on describing the exact placement of water molecules. You are capturing their probabilistic part of the placement in terms of this density functional, so actual probability distributions, without concentrating on individual positions. Classically speaking, this is typically just as hard as trying to determine the exact positions, but with quantum computing, the story changes drastically. With quantum-enabled methods, so methods that rely on quantum physics to describe the information itself, we can construct an algorithm that allows us to compute and reproduce this density function, this probabilistic aspect of the water molecules directly from an initial input of probability distribution, and therefore providing with us an approximate placement of the water molecules without carrying out the actual orbital-based molecular dynamic simulation. This is made possible by the unique nature of quantum physics or quantum information theory, which is the basis of these quantum computers. So maybe a quick introduction of how quantum information theory or how a quantum computer works. For this, you really have to imagine that a quantum computer is a next generation computer that's fundamentally different from classical computers. So fundamentally different, that starts from the very basis of information, the unit of information, which in a classical computer, the bit, so the presence or an absence of an electric signal. In a quantum computer's case, it's called a quantum bit, and it is something that's much more complex, much more intricate, and much more transient than a classical bit. So this is typically captured by what we call a Bloch sphere. So it's modeled on the scale of a sphere, an actual three-dimensional model to represent a single unit of information. You could think of it as follows. Let's imagine that we take the globe, the Earth, as a unit of information. If we look at this unit of information through the eyes of a classical computer, we only see the north and the south pole, the reference positions of 0 and 1, or their equivalent. However, if you look at this Earth from a classic quantum computer's point of view, suddenly all the sphere all the surface of the Earth becomes a potential quantum information. So instead of just having North Pole and South Pole available, we have all the surface, all the different positions in between that we can access, and then we can manipulate. So this vision of us, this spherical vision, gives a good idea of what superposition is. So this nature of information being somewhere in between 0 and 1. So your position being situated in between the North Pole and the South Pole.
Thank you for explaining all of that, Krisztian. That is very much a verbal, very short introduction, perhaps, to quantum information theory or quantum physics. I like this idea of the spherical vision. So let's talk about this somewhat in application now, because in a recent paper from September 2023 entitled Leveraging Analog Quantum Computing with Neutral Atoms for Solvent Configuration Prediction in Drug Discovery, PASQAL and Qubit Pharmaceuticals tested 2 quantum algorithms for precisely predicting solvent configuration, opening a pathway to possibilities for the application of analog quantum computing in molecular modeling and drug design. So I was wondering if you could explain further, in addition to that really useful introduction a second ago, the methodology of the study and what was found.
Yes, of course. And so let's, in a sense, build up on this visual image of what quantum information is, because once you have in your hand, so to speak, what the unit of information is, so in our case, it was this spherical representation of the Earth or fictive Earth. The next step that comes into play when you are doing computing is how to manipulate this information. And with quantum computers, you have 2 different ways to manipulate information. The first way, that's, I would say, a direct extension of what's happening in a classical computer, is called a digital or quantum logic gate-based quantum computing. So as the name implies, it inherits from a classical setting on a classical computer where you manipulate information with logic gates and or not. These are your building blocks, and you build all your algorithms using these building blocks. That's the same way you can introduce quantum logic gates, which are much more involved and much more complex, since the information is much more complicated. But you have these building blocks, and you use these quantum logic gates as building blocks to build up your algorithm, what we call a quantum circuit, to perform computations. However, there is another approach that you have mentioned already, which is analog quantum computing, which focuses on a different way to address the manipulation of information. So as the name implies, analog means that continuous in time. So you are, in a sense, evolving the information in an actual non-discretized fashion. I would say a good analogy is when you introduce or when you talk about building a castle, a toy castle. So if I ask you to build a castle, you could run to your basket of Legos or building blocks, and you can build up your castle through that. That, I would say, is an analogy to digital quantum computing. This brings you a castle that's quite robust. You can bring it around here and there. You can show it to everyone. However, if you were at the beach, you wouldn't run to the Lego blocks. You would start building a castle with sand. And much like analog quantum computing, building a sand castle does not have like building blocks. You are not moving around individual grains of sand. You are shaping the whole form. You're shaping it continuously, adapting, and that's how you are creating the final product. So this castle analogy, I think, illustrates very well the fact that you can build up from these building blocks to obtain something that's easy to move around, or you can shape it something to be a bit more custom, a bit more fragile in nature, but could be well adapted depending on the situation, being on a beach, for instance, or in this example. So building up on this analogy, what we have introduced is methods to leverage this protein hydration problem using both the analog and the digital quantum computing paradigm. So this publication introduces 2 different methods to be able to reproduce the density functional maps, so this probability distribution that can be used to infer positions of the water molecules within the protein. And it also provides a method to validate the experiment. So given a probability density of the potential location of water molecules, you can use the analog quantum computer to infer from this where the actual water molecules have to be placed. And you can compare both the density functions and the actual positions with experimental results to establish a final accuracy of the method. So I would say the main result of this paper was the showcase that you can already run this validation algorithm, this testing and verifying of if you have a density function, probability distribution of the water molecule positions, you can infer from that where the actual water molecules are, and you can compare that to classical prediction methodologies to obtain similar precision rates. So even though quantum computers of this day are not yet on par in terms of maturity with classical computers, if you use it for a well-targeted use case, you can produce something meaningful, something tangible, and that can bring eventually some added benefit to the industry itself.
Thank you for that. It sounds brilliant. I love this analogy of digital to analog and Legos to sandcastles. So this brilliance is not just me as a non-quantum physics person going, wow, but also in September last year, Pascal and Qubit Pharmaceuticals announced they were among 12 selected performers for Wellcome Leap's Quantum for Bio program in consortium with the Unitary Fund, an open source non-profit in quantum technologies. Now, Wellcome Leap is an offshoot of the Wellcome Trust and was launched in spring 2023 with the aim of accelerating the use of quantum computing in healthcare by developing applications that will benefit from the arrival of quantum computers within 3 to 5 years. Other performers selected for the award include NASA and the universities of Harvard, Cambridge, Copenhagen, and Sydney. That's quite a group to be grouped with, Krisztian. So I wonder, on that last note you made a second ago at the end of explaining the study and its results to us, you mentioned maturity of these quantum computers. So can you tell us more, A, about being awarded this award, and also where we're sort of seeing things progress with quantum computers?
Yes, of course. First of all, I do have to mention that we are immensely honored to be selected for this program. It is indeed a prestigious selections of projects that were mandated to participate in this program. It was actually made possible by the aforementioned publication together with Qubit Pharmaceuticals and PASQAL'S ongoing collaboration with them. So going forward, we will leverage this grant program, this Wellcome Leap program, in order to extend and elaborate this initial study on protein hydration to explore more avenues of where quantum computing could be introduced in the whole workflow, in the whole stack of industrial processes related to this use case. So it's going to be a 30-month project. So for the next 2.5 years, we will continue the investigations. And meanwhile, we are planning on expanding the actual capabilities of our hardware to be able to implement and showcase the solutions, which is one of the actual requirements of this Quantum for Bio project. So the Quantum for Bio project is one of the many initiatives that have been launched in recent years to accelerate the development of not the quantum computational resources, but the application, the industrialization process, which will be the main turning point for the actual technology. Because once we are able to showcase the actual industrial interest of the technology for different players, more and more people will start to adopt the technology, and therefore increasing the user base, the awareness, and getting more people involved means that it will gain more traction, and it will in turn accelerate the development process as well. So it will be a wholly beneficial cycle of boosts, I would say, for the whole procedure. So in terms of maturity, what you need to know is that current generation quantum hardware, so I'm really talking about the physical quantum processing units, are labeled as NISQ era machines. So NISQ means noisy intermediate scale quantum. So noisy as in it produces error that is still very much pertinent. So you cannot ignore that error. It is on a scale of 2 to the power of minus 2 to the power of minus 3. So 0.1, 0.01%, which may not seem a lot, but if you compare it to the error rate of classical machines, that's 10 to the power of minus 16. So you have I would say 14, 15 orders of magnitude difference between the error rates. So that's why they are considered noisy. They produce some errors that you have to account for, that you have to start to mitigate or to correct depending on the scheme. And they are called intermediate scale in a sense that the available computational resources, so the available quantum bits or qubits, is not high enough to be able to implement actual industrial scale problems. Typical investigations are more on a reduced size, so toy models, proof of concept type investigations for now because of this fact. What we expect and what we have seen of recent releases of various roadmaps of technologies, of technology providers such as IBM or Google or Intel's roadmap in the superconducting machine or QRA or PASQAL'S roadmap for the neutral atoms-based quantum computer is that we expect this year and the next to become the actual game changer when people will be able to showcase an actual industrial benefit of the technology. Some people like to refer to it as quantum advantage. I'm trying to be a bit cautious about this term because it gets very much overly hyped. As a mathematician, I am aware of the actual definition of what a quantum advantage means, and we are very much not there yet. However, you can already showcase a gain, a benefit from quantum technologies, which you could label as advantage, even though the label quantum advantage has been sort of abused a lot in the media. So I try to be cautious about this. However, the main message is that you already can showcase some gain by using quantum enabled or quantum enhanced methods. Typically, when you're looking at problems that require a lot of computational resources. Such was the case in this protein hydration use case, in which the actual modeling requires way too many classical computational resources to be able to be carried out correctly. But you can find other typical problems in other industries, such as in finance, in energy and utilities, any kind of network optimization problems, financial portfolios. Machine learning is a very big thing that's getting even more enabled by introducing quantum to the actual workflow, because it has been shown by various publications that a quantum layer in the methodology can enhance the extraceability of the data. So you can increase the precision of a prediction or precision of a classification method by introducing some elements of quantum into the whole workforce. And this, in my opinion, illustrates well where quantum is headed and what the role of quantum is going to be in the near future. So it's not a replacement to classical computational resources. It's there to complement, it's there to provide an additional computational source that can be dedicated to specific tasks in which it excels, be it optimization, machine learning, or simulation-related tasks. And at a later stage, in a couple of years, slowly, when the technology physically evolves to a stage of maturity where it can be deployed on a larger scale and quantum computational resources become less scarce, it will slowly evolve in terms of its role and in terms of its capabilities as well.
Thank you. Well, there you have it, listeners. A brief overview, a very much informative overview of how quantum computing can be used in healthcare today and tomorrow. Thank you very much for your time, Krisztian. It's been a pleasure.
And the pleasure's all mine. Thank you.
And so that concludes another episode of the Pharma Forum podcast. You can find out more information about this episode, including a download link and information about previous installments of the series at pharmaforum.com/podcasts. The Pharma Forum podcast is also available on iTunes, Spotify, Acast, Stitcher, and Podbean, where you can find and subscribe by searching for Pharma Forum. Of course, don't forget to visit our website itself, where you can sign up for daily news and analysis bulletins, and follow us on Twitter, or X nowadays, at @PharmaForum. That's all for now. Thank you for listening.